Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome back to today's Zeebear's Endless Dream Realm Boss Guide for Orson. So as the format yesterday, we're going to run through the team I use on my free-to-play account on the test server, as well as the teams that you can use using my main account with all the different units available. So for this boss specifically, the levels for you to hit Endless mode, based on this account, it's probably around the 671 to 681 range for this team over here to pop our Orson. So this is the team I use. Okay, resonating spell with Odie, Elsa, Lily May, Mikola, as well as Reina. So this is also the free-to-play team I use in the Endless stage with a little bit of modification to the positioning. So this is the team, and this is the level to pop it. So 191 build. Odie's ultimate insta-kill the boss somewhere near the 95-96% range. So that's it for this boss. Now let's move on to the free-to-play team recommendation. So this is the exact same team, right, but with a little bit of modification to the arrangement of the unit, so I'll explain why later. But for Orson, there's actually, I'll say, like 3 things that Orson is known for, or 3 things that you need to know about Orson. So Orson's strongest skill is Warrior's Pride. So this is the leveling skill. Once it reaches level 4, each Fury stack actually grants him a 16% damage reduction and a 50 haste. So he can have up to 5 stacks of this Fury stack, and this will cause him to go into a frenzy stage, which increases his damage output on the other skill, which is what you don't want. So you definitely need a unit that can remove the Fury stack, which is units which can interrupt him with this 2-second stun effect, right? So the best unit for you to use against him to remove the Fury stack is obviously Elsa. Okay, so there are other units like Lenya, as well as other control and stun units available out there, but Elsa is one of the best because Elsa's ultimate is very spammable. So this skill right here consistently deals a 2-second stun. So give me a moment. Yeah, over here, right? Vigorous Slam hits the target and back to the original spot, dealing damage and stunning him for 2 seconds. So the criteria to remove the Fury stack is to use a stun that is 2 seconds long. So if it's like 1.5 seconds, or if it's like a 0.5 second mini stun, then it doesn't work. So Elsa over here is able to spam the ultimate pretty consistently. The rock barrier or the stone barrier ability is also a 2-second stun as well. So Elsa has multiple ways which are spammable to actually try to stun the boss. Obviously you're not stunning the boss, but you are using these skills to remove the Fury stack, which is massive damage reduction. So with Elsa, you're able to consistently keep the Fury charge low, which maximizes your whole team damage, because without the Fury stack, the boss is not like reducing that much damage, and that's why Elsa is quite important for this boss. Obviously you can use other stun units, like units with Sylvina also has a stun at the start of battle, but I think these units, in terms of their stun ability, right, they are not as consistent as compared to Elsa. So Lenya was also one of the units which we used in terms of trying to remove the Fury stack. I think Lenya is still usable. Later on I'll showcase on the other account with a Lenya built up, but Lenya's removal speed of the Fury stack is just not as efficient. So that's why the best unit to do is Elsa right here. So as a free-to-play account, obviously most of us will have Odie, most of us will have Lily May and Reina built up, and then we use Mikola as the frontline charging support. So you can also use Smokey, but if you want to use Smokey, you got to reposition Smokey in this right corner over here. Okay, so this is for the free-to-play players, and you got to reposition Elsa here and Lily May here, so that both of them will consistently get the damage M from the Smoky aroma. So the reason why you put Smoky here is because this tile specifically is a tile where the boss will not be able to interrupt Smoky. So other than the prod itself, this boss also has this piercing impact, which is able to summon giant spears to knock back enemies, which is a form of control. And if you let him go into the frenzy state, then you get this additional knockdown effect to all enemies, which is why you need to remove the Fury stack with Elsa. And then this boss also has this impale strike, so he will leave the nearest enemy with the spear and then throw them at the area with the most enemies. So usually the frontmost unit that is just right in front of him will be lifted, and then he'll throw it at the area of the most enemy. So that's why we use Mikola and in that specific position. So just now earlier I actually did this positioning. So Mikola is like this. So what will happen is Mikola will run up to the front, And because she's like this frontmost unit, the boss will actually take her and throw her towards the area with the most units, usually the area with both Elsa as well as Lily May. Because Odie, being able to get this invulnerability from the resonating spell, doesn't get targeted by the boss unless it's like at this frame where he's not buffed by the resonating spell. That's where the boss will actually grab him, but it rarely happens. So most of the time the units that get grabbed is actually Mikola. So later I'll showcase this one first, and then I'll showcase the Smoky team. And what happens is when Mikola is with the Courage Sphere, she will be lifted and then thrown to Elsa, and this way as she's running back to the front once again, she will actually buff up the haze of the other units as she runs through them. So there's this like momentary buff which is quite funny, but this is one way to min-max on the damage. So later on I'll showcase the team as well as the Smoky variants, and that's pretty much it for the boss. This is a massive AoE damage in the frontal arc, but it's not that important. So these are the important stuff of Orson, right? Warrior's Pride, the control ability, as well as the prevention of him entering the frenzy state for him to hit really hard. Okay, so these are the three things, and without further ado, right, let's start with this run, and I'll explain the rationale for giving Odie the resonating spell right here. So resonating spell gives you an attack buff and also a invuln ability. So when a unit is invuln, surprisingly the unit is not targeted by the boss. So this worked with Smoky in yesterday's boss really late. There was a brand new Smoky build with resonating spell that is one of the most meta team, and for that team specifically, it was also due to this invuln mechanic, which was, I think, discovered by one global player. I'm not exactly sure, but it was super duper late. I fell asleep after that. But as you guys can see, the boss is constantly lifting Mikola and then throwing her back. So Mikola with the aura will be able to buff all this backline unit as she's running forward. And then once she runs forward, she will be able to buff the frontline units like Odie as well as Lily May, depending on where she runs. So there is a little bit of RNG because depending on where Elsa runs, depending on where Lily May runs, the damage could be min-max here. So Elsa died a little bit early, but the peak damage for this team is actually 25 bill based on this account right here. So I do have a record. Okay, so let's go back into the record. So there is a little bit of RNG because depending on where Elsa positions herself, depending on where Mikola runs after she gets thrown, the outcome will be a little bit different. Okay, so this is the positioning, and the next one we're gonna do another position with Smoky instead. So for this one, we're gonna use this positioning and we're gonna use Smoky right here. Okay, so same thing. In this case, this position over here will actually keep Smoky safe to channel the ultimate full duration. So this is what you want. Get Smoky to channel the skill full duration to keep the whole team healthy. And the reason why this works is because same thing, the resonating buff on Odie, make sure that Odie is like this invuln frontline unit that is targeted by the boss. So the boss doesn't actually move like that much, right? So this boss actually can move from his original position, as I'll showcase with another build later on. But with Odie on the front line, the boss stays in the spot, and then Smoky is able to channel his skill safely at that corner right there. Okay, so this one is a more consistent buff and heal, which will keep the whole team healthy. Mikola's one, I'll say, is more min-max in terms of damage, because depending on how well Mikola buffs your whole team and how well she survives and the other units survive, I think Mikola is probably the better buffer for the late gamers with higher levels and better unit stats. So Smoky will be the more consistent one. So over here, Elsa still died, unfortunately. Okay, we have 8 seconds. I think we should be able to do like 24 builds. So once Elsa died, you can see the orb building up behind the boss and the boss entering the Fury stack. So this is one thing which you don't want, and that's why you need to try to keep Elsa alive. Okay, so this is the damage distribution right here. So that's for the two free-to-play teams. Next, let's move on to another account to showcase all the other team variants. Let's go. Okay, so now we are back on the stronger account. This account has more units over here, as you guys can see. So now for this boss, the arrangement is pretty much the same as the previous Smoky arrangement, but instead we have the return of Reso, and the unit of choice over here for this carry slot can be both Odie as well as Lily May. But after a few rounds of testing, the unit that performs better in terms of min-maxing for damage is actually using Lily May. So we will be using Lily May for this one. Just level tune all the key units first. Give me a moment. 770, 768. Okay, so let's start the battle. So Reso right here provides energy regen for Elsa to spam the skill even more. And turns out in endless mode, Reso's damage output as a HP percentage damage dealer is coming back to be one of the stronger damage dealer. So that's why Reso makes a return, and because Reso is a magical damage dealer, he also fits really well with the team with another artifact which I'll showcase later on. So this is, I'll say, like the end game meta, at least as of right now. So with regards to the magic charm ability, we are still, I'll say, like pretty early into the game in terms of the magic charm that we can get. So there is still 2 more tiers for most people because we are still at the yellow color side on the global server. So things might still change, specifically for all the endless bosses, because obviously as we unlock the legendary and mythic plus charms itself, the whole thing might actually change in terms of who deals better damage, who does the more min-max stuff with regards to Dream Realm. So we will do the continuous update if there's any massive change, but this is the strongest team as of the very first day we hit the endless boss for this run. Okay, so 443 build over here. Okay, so Reso makes a return, and you run through the numbers over here, as you guys can see, Reso does even more damage than Elsa, which is supposed to be like a really good damage dealer. So Lily May is obviously the main carry. We can obviously put OD into the team as well, but I think generally Lily May usually delivers the higher damage for most of the runs that we experimented with. So Reso, very good damage dealer in the endless mode, and because we are only at the yellow color hero charm over here, so things might still change because other units will be able to get better abilities, because Reso's magic charm ability is more defensive by nature, which might not be the best in terms of min-maxing for the boss, but we shall see how it goes as we move further. So that's for this team build. Okay, so this team over here can also use another artifact, which is the arcane spell, which is also really good together with all the units, because your main source of damage comes from magical damage, which makes it such that arcane spells debuff benefit most of the unit here, and because you're able to do massive damage within a short period of time to the boss for you to activate the arcane spell pretty consistently, it is a good damage source for the team. Okay, so let's showcase this run. So pardon me for my nose, got a little bit of sneezing going on, but it's fine. So right here, as you guys can see, the arcane spell is able to proc pretty consistently. So the build up is a little bit slow, but I think things will get better as we go into the higher levels, because we will be getting a lot more stats across the board, and we will be getting a much larger build up in terms of damage as well. Okay, so right here, boom, there's a 3 missile attack on the boss to reduce magical defense as well as deal a little bit more damage. So this is another artifact that you guys can use and trial and error to see whether or not it works better for you. So this artifact specifically is better defensively in case your account is weaker, because this artifact has a better defensive stat compared to Resonating. But I think Resonating is more consistent in delivering high damage, because for this over here, you need to hit a certain threshold for you to activate your magic projectile. So if you are weaker by nature, you might actually take more time to charge up the artifact to unleash the magical spell. So this is probably better for players which are generally stronger to get the arcane spell spam going. Okay, so 43 build right here. So these damage numbers are pretty close, and you can see that the boss will continuously advance if there are no units on the front line. So this is why putting your units in that positioning is really good. I looked at this Zeeebo in the post editing. So after I'm done with my recording and stuff, there's actually a brand new arrangement with regards to the units, which delivered much more consistent damage. Arcane spell with the combination of Elsa, Mikola, Smokey as well as Reso delivers a much higher damage range across the different accounts that I have. So right here, we're going to showcase the replay. So this positioning forces Mikola to exit last and go into this corner over here, and the courage fear ability from her is able to cover both Reso as well as Elsa at the start of battle. So as the boss advances, as the boss push back the frontline units, Mikola's aura will slowly reach Lily May at the back, and this means that both our carries will have the buff from Smokey as well as Mikola. We're also getting the burn from Smokey if you do have the EX weapon from Smokey, which also amps up our damage by quite a bit, and the combination of Reso together with Mikola Courage Fear is actually quite a good damage combination, because both Reso, they hit a lot harder. So later on we'll showcase the damage distribution. Okay, so this is with Mikola as well as Smokey as the double buffer for the team. Okay, so this is in post editing, so I have to re-record it separately. So you guys can see the buff benefiting all the carry units, especially I'll say Elsa, because Elsa needs to spam her skill to keep the damage reduction of the boss as low as possible. So for Lily May's case, sometimes she might not actually stand within the courage here, but it's fine. Like, this is still the maximum damage. Okay, so you guys can see the damage distribution from Reso. Really good numbers, because both the illusion as well as the main bodies, they are buffed up by Mikola's courage sphere. So lastly, one more team for you guys. So for this boss specifically, the physical team is not exactly the best, because they don't have a unit which can remove fairy stack as consistently, but there is a build which I think does decent amount of damage. Obviously not as good as the magical side, because they just don't have Elsa that can remove the fairy stack. We can use Lenya obviously, so we're gonna use Lenya as a carry, and then we're gonna go with this one, and we are going to go with Mikola as well as Kruger. So let's go with this. So this is the physical team. So Lenya does remove the boss's stack okay, but is obviously not the strongest, because the control is just not as consistent as Elsa's ability. So we're gonna level tune all the units a little bit. Okay, and let's start this run. Let's go. Okay, so this is the physical team side. You guys can compare the damage with similar levels. Okay, so the stats of the units, they are, I'll say, like pretty close, at least in terms of the unit quality, because the EX weapon, they are very similar in terms of levels. Okay, so Lenya is also a unit that can remove the fairy stack, but you can see that the bosses still holds onto like a few of the orbs at the back of his body. So not as efficient as Elsa, because when you're fielding Elsa on the battlefield, when Elsa is spamming her skill, the boss basically doesn't have this orb behind him. So that's why the physical team actually lose more damage to the damage reduction from the boss compared to the magical one, unfortunately. So another team that you can use is obviously to replace the Lenya with Sinbad. So Sinbad has a debuff which increases damage on the boss if the boss has some damage reduction ability. So now we're gonna do one more run with Sinbad just to showcase. So damage is okay, but obviously it's not gonna keep you in the top ranks, at least if you want to chase after the highest rank in your server. Okay, so we have Sinbad. Let's go with Sinbad. So this team doesn't have any way to remove the frenzy stat of the boss. So what will happen is the boss will actually build up the orbs behind him, but Sinbad's debuff will be able to sort of increase the damage on the boss with the EX weapon. So you need EX weapon on Sinbad for him to get the skill for more damage when the boss have damage reduction on him. So that is one thing. And because this team itself, we have quite a bit of heal and damage reduction, even if the boss enter the frenzy state, we are still able to survive because of the heal damage reduction across all the different units. So this team over here also hits pretty well. So not the 40 build range, but I think 32, 33, same as the Lenya one. Okay, so 3 more seconds, 2 more seconds, 34 build over here. So this is the physical team showcase. Okay, so that's it for this video. In terms of the substitutes available, right, for the best team, let's just sub in the team again and then discuss about the substitutes. So for Reso's case, obviously you can just use the OD and the Lily May setup as showcased earlier in the free-to-play account. So this way your OD will stay on the front line, and then with resonating spell, the inbound will actually hold the boss in place for the other range units to output damage safely. So this is, I'll say, like the free-to-play team variants. Obviously if you don't have Elsa, use a unit which has the ability to apply some sort of stun on the boss for you to remove the fairy stack consistently. So Elsa is the best. I think there are other units that are able to do it, and it's more consistent amongst free-to-play players. Okay, Taunt unit works, but I think personally Elsa, I'll say, has no replacement, because looking at this, the only other unit which I feel has like this stun is actually Merrily. So Merrily has a stun over here. So, but Merrily stun is a very short duration stun, so it doesn't actually remove the Fury stack. So unfortunately for Elsa, if you don't have Elsa, then I think the best way to do it is to just put in a Coco to just survive in case the boss hits really hard from the frenzy stack itself. So Elsa, I'll say, has no replacement. Unless you're using the physical team, then you can use Lenya, or maybe use Sinbad, right? Sinbad has the ability to actually apply a debuff based on the boss's like defenses. So right here, So the boss, if the boss uses damage mitigation, which is damage reduction, you get this additional physical defense down on the boss, or magical defense down. So let's say if you don't have Elsa, I think you can use Sinbad. So if the boss have a lot of stacks, at least Sinbad has this additional debuff for your team to do both more physical and magical damage. So that's for the substitute side for Elsa. For the carry side, unfortunately, Talin's not exactly a really good unit against this boss, because Talin will fly to the front line, and she will be grabbed by the boss. I don't know why it doesn't work with her, specifically resonating spell, so she doesn't go inval, so her ultimate will be stopped. So once she stopped channeling her ultimate, her damage output actually drops quite a bit. So Talin's okay, but obviously not as strong as both OD and Lilimate against this boss specifically. And then with regards to the other units, for the magical side, I don't think there's a better damage dealer other than Talin against this duo, right? So that's pretty unfortunate, but I think most of the free-to-play players, or most players, should have both OD and Lilimate in their account. So that's pretty much it. This is a, I'll say, like, pretty common and stable team for most people, so the damage will vary based on your levels as well as your EX weapon levels itself, but I think it is mostly applicable for most people. So let's say if you don't have this team built up but you have the physical team built up, you can use the physical team which I recommended earlier. So that's pretty much it for this video, right? Just a simple showcase of what are the best teams on the very first day of us reaching the endless stage for Orson right here. So thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more. See you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.